very first time. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Hey, appreciate being here. Thanks for the invite to be on here.
Yeah. So how you doing today?
It's been an eventful day. I will put it that way. We ended up starting out in the emergency room for my fiance and got back home late in the afternoon. So I'm with very little sleep and very little coffee today, but I am doing much better since I'm home now.
So she's good then.
Yes, there was
Yeah.
complications. She's having some back issues and things like that, but could have been a lot worse. We'll put it that way. And they ruled that out.
Well, that's good. No, it's good. No, I just, as long as everything's okay, that is hunky dory. It's always a stressful start. I've had an up and down week. Nothing quite that personal, but up and down week myself. So, but I mean, I've had some great guests, and I'm hoping to kind of continue the trend the rest of the week. So man, so I've heard of you. I've heard good and bad things about you.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, I've heard both. But I mean, you definitely, and that's I think a mark of just coming into being in the industry for a while. You make friends and you make some people that aren't so friendly. I mean, that's just part of the business.
True. Very
But
true.
I guess we'll start with how'd you get in? Like, what was the like? What this was a dream come true, or was this a plan for world domination? What was it?
Well, I mean, it's still in the process. No, back in back in 2015 is whenever I first started into. I actually got introduced to Luis Torres. I saw some of his work on there, and I just reached out to him and I was like, "Man, that's some really cool stuff you got." I thought he actually drew it, which thought that was hilarious as all get out because all he does is create it. He doesn't even do the art. And he invited me back to see some of the scripts and something like that from things he had done because I had shown some interest in what he was doing. From there, he just kind of branched out and said, "You want to meet some other people that are in the industry?" And I was like, "Is that allowed? Is there like a secret handshake? Is there something I need to go through, ritual sacrifice or anything to get back here?" But he brought me back with meet some other people online, which was awesome. Started talking to them. Started seeing some of their behind the scenes process on how comics and everything are created, which is amazing because first of all, going to an LCS and just picking a comic off the shelf and going, cool cover, I think I'll take this one, has now become cool cover. Now let me look inside of it and see what's going on with the actual book. So it's really had an evolution process, which has been awesome. And all of that, like I said, thanks to Luis Torres for being the hook behind the curtain.
So, okay, in that case, so you basically kind of stumbled your way in. Basically, did you do a secret handshake or a ceremony? I should ask that question.
Secret handshake, no, sir. The sacrificial ceremony, I can neither confirm nor deny said statement.
Oh, okay, it was the patty cake for me, but that's okay. Some of us sacrifice whatever we sacrifice, and others do the patty cake, and that's just how it goes, right? So,
Exactly.
no, so what are you? So, are you a comic book writer? Are you a comic book company? Are you a publisher? What exactly is Phil Lockler in this
So,
industry?
to the questions you just asked, no, no, and no, as of yet. What I am is the best way to describe me is, I guess, it's influencer. Um, I come on here and I'm trying to help as many people as I possibly can. 2020 being as terrible as it was, a lot of people came in and they had no idea how to go ahead and keep a digital, profile of anything and have their you know their they need their presence, shown online and everything, and that social media, standing on there. So I was trying to help by that and doing the shows, and I almost killed myself on doing so many shows. I think one week I ended up doing like 17 shows in a week just because I couldn't say no to anybody. I was trying to help as many people as possible, and it was awesome. I was having a blast doing it, even though my health was kind of taking a hit from it at the time and all too. But still, I was doing good, and that's what I was looking at with that. So influencer is definitely it. I have dabbled into the world of marketing, and now I am officially, and this is, I guess, like an exclusive on your show, but as of next year, I will have my first book completed and will be done by middle of year.
So, okay, then why don't we'll start with your book. Just we'll start there and we'll work our way backwards.
Okay.
So, did you always want to do a book?
So the story behind this, and it gets the same response every time I tell it from everybody that hears it, but it's been a it's been a story in the works for about 20 plus years.
Okay.
The reason being is because I started writing it as a novel. And I was having a blast with this, had quite a bit into it. I was into my last probably 3 or 4 chapters to finish this thing up. Now, here's where it gets hanky because everyone has that OCD or that that bad mentality of something's going to happen type thing. So you always back your stuff up, correct? So I went ahead and backed my stuff up on not one but 2 external hard drives. Both of those external hard drives ended up being corrupted, and I lost everything that I've been working on. So everyone that I've talked to up to this point has been like, "Oh no, what are you going to do?" It's still in here, but the thing is the novel side of it is not in there as much, especially with me being in the comic industry and being able to see how things are done here. And now I have some mentors that are kind of working with me on this and helping me out and giving me some pointers to actually write it as a comic, which is very cool. So that's what I'm going with, is changing it from a novel form to a comic form.
Cool. Okay, so that could be for a number of different reasons. Like, also, I mean, when did you like? So you started writing a novel 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
So when did the hard drive crash?
Uh, honestly, a hard drive crash probably 10 plus years later, something like that.
Okay, so 10 years later.
And the reason being is because, honestly, I chickened out. I didn't want to finish it because I was scared that whenever I finished it and turned it in, it wasn't going to be accepted and that I was going to be failing at that point. Now, fast forward to now, where I'm a little bit older, as you can't tell by the white in the goatee here, but I've learned a few things since then. And if you don't ever try, then you're going to fail 100% of the time. But if you go ahead and try, you won't fail quite as much because it's always a success.
So I started drawing about 2 years ago now. It's been about 2 years. Like, they're actually, holy crap, it's going to be my second year anniversary of me drawing, actually, in about 3 weeks, maybe
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks, actually. I had to look at the exact day I started doing the podcast on Twitch like this. But when I started doing the podcast on Twitch, it was funny. That's when I started doing drinking draws. So I would draw with people that were way better than me, way better than me. But the revelation point was I was afraid of drawing because I thought I'd suck. And then I had this wonderful thought one day: so what if I suck?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's one thing with the book that I'm going to be coming out with my book. It's going to have 2 variants for it, but there's going to be 2 covers that are not exclusively variants. I wouldn't say they're not exactly standard, but my fiance and I both are going to be drawing covers for this book. So she's never done anything. I've never done anything. So this is our first, shot at this. And we're having some fun with what we're coming up with for some ideas on it. It's really coming along. It looks pretty cool.
Enjoy the process, man. That's all I gotta tell you, man. Is enjoy the process. It'll take you stuff. It'll take you places. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Oh, yes.
But no, I mean, it also makes sense though. In another sense, okay, there's a couple of things we could go into. I think one of the things about I have a belief with anything you write, you have a window to write it. You only have a certain amount of time to write it, unless you're neck deep into like a big epic 12-part epic novel fantasy series, then you're into it because it's you're growing with it at that point. But
Right.
the initial idea, you got about 3 years to tell it, or you still might be able to tell it years later,
Mm-hmm.
but it won't be the same story. It'll be evolved into something else.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense that you transitioned into something else, because the novel writers 20 years ago, I mean, I'm sure he was a cool dude, but he doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. Definitely different guy. I was not Demon Phil back then by any means. I was just Phil Lockler. So it does change it up.
So Demon Phil. Why Demon Phil?
I've only had, in all the time that I've done my shows, one guest out of 130 shows and counting. Only one guest has asked me that question. So being on your show, I'm going to give you props on that one, because I've been on a few other shows and they never ask either. So I'm glad to tell this one. So my lead character of my book, his name is Demonstricus Dark. Darke is his last name. So the name Demonstricus, especially whenever it's spelled out and printed out in front of you, may look a little difficult to pronounce if you're not familiar with it. I was on a a live stream in the comment section whenever Brian Polito was doing a Coffin Comics thing over there. And I was just commenting away and talking about things. And because I was interacting and other people were interacting, he's really interacting with the group. And he gets over to mine and he goes, "That's a really good point. Demonstricus. You know what? We're just going to call you Demon Phil from now on. I can't pronounce that." And I was like, you know what? Demon Phil fixed. I'm good with that.
Okay. So Brian Paluto named you Demon Phil, and hence that's why
Exactly.
it's stuck.
Exactly.
So, were you a big comic fan prior to getting and stumbling into this? Did you read any
yeah.
good runs or books? So what were your books?
I mean, back whenever I was a kid, of course, it was Marvel, DC, that kind of stuff. The biggest ones that I remember for whatever reason is ISIS #1. I had that one, but the cover was ripped off for whatever reason. That was like my prized possession. And you can't find ISIS #1 anywhere. I've looked in different places just to see if I could replace it somehow, some way, and not so much. Of course, X-Men #1, various, Superman, Spider-Man, different ones that I had in there. Just a kind of a huge collection of different things. As I got older, that's whenever I started going into more of the Image comics and things like that. So whenever Spawn came out, I was all over that one. I had numbers, I think it was 1 through 56 of the originals, along with the comics that came with the figures, because I would buy the figures 2 at a time so that I can go ahead and get one to pop out of the case and one to leave in there. And I had the comics for those as well. And of course, then divorce happened and those went by.
It's the way it goes. You lose all your toys when things fall apart. So
Yes.
it's just the way it goes. So, you still got the comics, or are they all gone too?
No, all that. I mean, I had to start pretty much almost completely over whenever that was said and done. I've been through two failed marriages. The second one was a shorter marriage. The first one was about 17 years, and the first divorce was rather ugly. And whenever that happened, that was more or less you got 15 minutes to get to storage because I left the door open for you to get your stuff out of there if you want to keep it. And it's like, you left the door open to storage? All my stuff's in there. I mean, like comics, toys, everything. And I wouldn't be surprised if anybody came in there and just grabbed whatever they did, from there. I'll never know because I got what I could out of there and did what I could to survive.
Sorry to hear about that.
Sometimes before it was something that would upset me to talk about or anything, but now I look at it as everybody's got to have something that actually gets them pushed in a direction that they need to be. It needs to mold them into the people that they are. And that's the way I look at it, is I've gone through a lot of junk to go ahead and become a much better person throughout the years. So I'm happy with who I am now.
That's good. I mean, I'll say. I mean, sometimes when you go through stuff, you kind of wish that hey, maybe I didn't have to go through this really, 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 really tough moment this way. There's a few moments in my life I go, yeah, I didn't have to do it this way. I could have. There were other ways, maybe, but then again, who knows? I mean, who can say? Sometimes, I mean, it's easy to second guess that kind of stuff. But what it comes down to is, you go in and life happens. And for whatever reason, you and your wife were done. Based on what you just told me, whatever happened between you two, she took it very personally. And, that was that. And I imagine your second marriage, although probably, again, different person, maybe not that different of a person. Mm-hmm. So it ran its course quicker. Hopefully better ending, right?
To a degree.
Yeah, to a degree, right? At least quicker, at least a little less painful, right?
Right.
And then hopefully you get older and wiser. I question the whole wiser thing in my case. I wonder sometimes when I wake up in the morning, am I as smart as I think I am? And sometimes the answer is no.
Well, it's gotten to the point where I no longer consider it being a success to be wiser on my end. I consider it more of a success as long as I'm able to help people somehow, some way, in some form, then I'm doing my job. That's the way I look at it nowadays. Before it was, I'm not saying it was a selfish thing by any means, but it's more of a, if I see one person who gets an extra backer out of it because of someone watched on my show, if I see one artist that reaches out to a creator because they saw something on my show about that, I consider that a success. it's the little wins that keep me going, keep me pushing forward on these.
Okay. So you mentioned helping people. So is that where the influencers, and I'll go back into the marketing slash
Mhm.
influencing thing. So is that what your service like? So when did you decide that helping people would be a big goal for you?
I mean, of course, the biggest time was 2020. Whenever everybody needed it the most, that's whenever they say comics never sleep, and I lived through that very slogan, 2020, because I helped as many people as I possibly could. And by helping, I mean I got them on the show as guests on there, and my feed was absolutely nothing but shares and reposts and anything to do with anything about anybody who was reaching out to me saying, I've got, project A over here. Can you help me get this thing pushed out there? I didn't have that much influence by any means at all, but I would at least go ahead and get more eyes on it. And the way I look at it is I've got a huge sales background. So for every 100 people that come through the door, to a retail box, store, for every 100 people, there's 10 people that's going to buy something. So you want to make sure you get more eyes on a lot of these projects because not everybody's going to say yes. There is no magic, formula out there to make it where everybody you move over there says yes. I mean, that'd be great if we could do that. It just doesn't happen. That's why you have to send more people over there.
Well, it's interesting because we're talking about marketing, right? One of the biggest things I've noticed with a lot of artists is, and I actually think this boggles my mind, they suck at it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it boggles my mind a little bit because they work so hard on the works they create, like they really really do. And while I'm not saying you want to like look, it's kind of foreign to go. Oh, by the way, please buy my shit. I get
Mm-hmm.
that. Like it is a little
Right.
awkward. But at the same time, if you don't do it with your own stuff, like if you're not going to do it, no one else is going to either.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, you got to
so
be willing to self promote to a degree. I mean, it's not a matter of, strong arming people or anything like that, but you still have to be able to say, my stuff's good enough. Go ahead and, grab a piece of this while it's still here.
well, it's not even like that's the other thing about sales. Sales isn't not necessarily about strong arming. It's about bullshitting like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really like sales is when you get right down to it, sales is two things. It's relationship building and storytelling. That's
Yep.
it. Marketing is the same thing. The only difference is what is the scale and marketing. There's more of a here I am. Please come check me out.
Mm-hmm.
Sales is okay. Now that someone's here, here's my pitch,
Right.
and it's part of the game. It's not necessarily a fun. It's not always fun. I mean, always think about the fact. I mean, when we get to the end of the show, we're going to promote something here. I mean, that's why you're here. I mean, let's be honest, right? But at the same time, it's one of those things where you got to look at it as like in the process of this, we are having a conversation, and maybe people will connect to what you're saying, right? Maybe people won't, and that's true. And that's the other big thing about getting as many eyes on the door as possible. Sometimes it's important to filter out who's not going to buy your stuff
Mm-hmm.
because it'll teach you where to market your stuff better.
Exactly. Or to go ahead and do something like we're really trying right now, which is actually bridging the gaps between different market groups. Used to, my shows were completely 100% comics. That's all I dealt with. I started branching out to some of the pop culture stuff. Now I've got guests that are coming up in the next couple of months in the music field, movies, streaming, wrestlers. We're
Mm-hmm.
starting to get into those markets that have more eyes so that we can hopefully say, if you like this, go check this out over here and start branching the different shows together so that there'll be a lot more people who can actually look at things. Sometimes you just have to kind of throw something out there and see if it'll stick. I mean, and I think this is actually something that would stick.
Oh yeah, I mean, someone's kind of doing that himself. Like I've interviewed people from all over, right? Right,
Hmm.
book authors primarily was the show. Comic creators are kind of secondary, but I've done pro wrestlers, politicians. I've done CEOs. I've done New York Times bestsellers. I've done heavy metal backs. I mean, that's what I do,
Hmm.
right? Just I find the stuff that interests you and grow accordingly.
Exactly. But you've got to admit it also has where since you've got that broader field on the marketing groups with their you've got more eyes that are watching different aspects of it. Someone from the wrestling group might actually say, I didn't even know they had comics, on Kickstarter or whatever. And now they know, and they're able to go over there and not only support it themselves, but they're telling their wrestler buddies, hey, check this out as well. And vice versa. It does like a full circle thing for all the different ones involved.
Well, wrestlers are just nearly as terrible marketers as writers. I've learned this as well. They're nearly as terrible. So, except for the really smart ones. The really smart ones, right? The really smart ones know how important this is, and they don't blow off any opportunity to get any screen time. They just don't, because they realize that anything, you never know who's watching. That's the other thing too, right? Someone might stumble on, even if it's a clip that only a few people have seen. It's not even just the number of people; it's the right people, and that's a very important thing. But this is what you'll notice. Let's say I get a wrestler on the show, and let's say he's a comedy wrestler, for example, just a comedy style wrestler. Well, maybe that comedy style wrestler will connect to that comedy book, and you can put them together like peanut butter and jelly, right? Or that heavy metal band. I listen to a lot of pirate metal, for example. Well, if there's a comic about pirates, it goes together quite well, right? A lot of the same people that like certain things will gravitate to things that look like it. That's just how it works, right? I do an Alice in Wonderland Greek mythology mashup series. So guess what? Guess who's going to like my stuff? People that like Alice in Wonderland. People that like Greek mythology to some degree. It's not as big as a niche, but okay, Alice in Wonderland, theater kids, people that certain gamers will love my stuff too, just based on that philosophy, right? So that's what I want to do. The reality of the situation, though, is, right. But again, people don't necessarily think in those terms. It's not just about numbers. It's about the audience itself. Who's your audience?
Exactly. I mean, trying to figure out and grow your audience from that as well, but also cater to the ones who are actually interactive, because you've made these things. I keep seeing these posts on social media. For $10, you can have 40 million active
Oh yeah,
subscribers.
I get approached all the time now because of all the videos I
Exactly.
do.
Exactly. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, the numbers go up, but you got nothing. I mean, it's still tumbleweeds and crickets. There's no difference in it whatsoever. So it doesn't change anything except for the numbers going up. In my opinion, I would rather have 500 to 1,000 interactive, subscribers on YouTube or something like that, as opposed to having 40 million who I only still talk to 500 to 1,000 on a regular basis. It doesn't make any sense to have the rest of them on there just being free.
I think at 40,500,000 to 1,000, that'd be all the like capacity you could do to be. Let's be honest here about that. Right, there's a point when an audience gets so big you just can't anymore. Like then you're dealing with other problems at that point.
Yep.
I'm a podcast. My audience is how I market, right? The fact that I can draw a certain audience, and I've done it, means that I can now go to, say, you and go, hey, I can possibly draw a bigger audience for you. I'm talking like strictly on a business level. Or I can go to a company and go, I can build your show from the ground up because I know how to do it and how to reach people and what your market, I think, is likely to be. Right. I know how to do that kind of research as well. So, I mean, there are some caveats to that. Like, okay, for example, I don't know if I'm ever going to do like a full-fledged, like, My Little Pony special on the podcast. Now that I've said that, someone in the universe is going to say it. Challenge accepted. Right. But it's not my thing. Right. It's just not. But that doesn't mean it isn't somebody's thing, right? And that's the thing. You gotta understand, if you're doing like there's a Batman, like there are some podcasts that are really, really very niche driven. Like I know of a very successful Batman podcast, uber successful, and he's just tapping into everything Batman related he can find.
Mm-hmm.
right? And like there's lots of and with something like Batman, there's a lot of places you can go, right? There's the movies, the shows, the comics, the creators and that work on the comics, some of the
Oh, yeah.
actors, actresses, right? So you can do a lot of different things. And this is just the Batman example. This is the advantage of having an intellectual property that's gone that big is you've got so many places to play with.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when you're looking at something like, I got an Alice in Wonderland niche with one of my series. So where else can I go with that? I mean, there's the Disney stuff, there's the games, there's all the homages to Alice out there. So I have
Mm-hmm.
a huge fan base I can tap into for these books anytime I want to. And that's the thing. It's like, how do I get these people to look at my stuff? How do I draw their attention?
Right.
That's my challenge. That's what marketing is really about, is identifying who your audience is and how to figure out to get them to engage.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you can't just blanket post or your absolute enemy in marketing. Just throwing something out there and saying, "Here's the Kickstarter link, go do it." You got to actually personalize it. So, case in point, we had one that we were marketing last year, year before. I can't remember now. Um, but it was a spy book type thing. So we would actually take it and put it into spy niche that was over there, different ones, but we actually did it as a Mission Impossible briefing, is the way that we actually worded the thing on there, which went very well. We had a lot of turnover from that, and people coming on there and going, "This is great. We're laughing our butts off at this. This is awesome. When's the next post coming out?" When they get that excited about a post that's coming out, then you start seeing, whenever you look at the metrics, you start seeing how many people are actually clicking on that and going over to the campaign, and then going ahead and at least supporting in some way, some fashion in there, which was awesome to finally see that. But it took some learning to get to that point, because we've also made the mistakes in the past of getting to the point where it is a blanket post, and you're just like, "Hey, there's a Kickstarter going on right now. You got 27 days. Please get over there before it ends. We'd certainly appreciate it. Bye." It doesn't work that way. People just don't gravitate to that at all. Once you make it personal and make it where it's almost like you're a part of the process of this building, then that's whenever they have fun and they engage in it. That's what we did with that spy. It was a blast.
You can get some traction though. I mean, a lot of shows do this at the end of their shows. Hit the like, subscribe, enable notifications. It really
Mm-hmm.
helps us out. Like asking people sometimes goes a long way too. Like
Mm-hmm.
like I should probably be asking people, hey, subscribe to my Twitch channel just because, right? And engage. Please engage and tell your friends. I should do that more. But I mean, there's again, it's figuring out ways to tie this in organically because
Mm-hmm.
that's the other thing too. You don't want to come off fake. I
Right.
think that's the big thing, right? It's like, oh yeah, this is all about. It's not just about the. It's not just about the money. It is about money, and that'd be a lie to say otherwise. But it's about. But it's also about establishing a relationship because you're not looking just to build a customer for the minute. You're looking to build a customer forever.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You want to. What I always tell the people that I'm dealing with is, you want to turn them from fans into followers. Fans will come on there and support whatever you got. They'll back it, a one off, and they're done. Followers come on there. Not only will they go ahead and back, support, and do everything they need to, they'll go tell grandma, and they'll go tell the mailman, and they'll tell the milkman and the grocery store owner and whoever else they can find about the project, because they're so passionate about it at that time. That's why followers are something that I try to make sure that we're building, as much as possible, at least, so that they'll go ahead and spread the word a little bit.
So, did you? So, I've heard this. I heard the term super fan.
Hmm.
Right? Is that the challenge to find the big super fans?
I mean, it's not really a super fan challenge by any means. I'm not doing that. It's just interaction is interaction. Uh, you just want to go ahead and make sure that whoever's there is going to be, how do I put this? You want it to be an experience. Anytime they're dealing with anything that's on there, whether it's a campaign that you're dealing with or a show that they're on there watching, just learning about the creator on there or whatever, you want to make it an experience. It can't just be where they sit in and become a number. You want them to actually get on there and be like, "Okay, this is cool. I actually see what's going on with this one, and I'm going to go ahead and and pay attention and see what's happening."
hello, our TV one. You have interacted, and how you doing today? Right.
Welcome to the show.
So, yeah, welcome to the show. This is kind of fun. It's one of those things I've learned about the business is you have to look at it from the it's like there's two parts to it. Like, and ultimately it's about storytelling. Like, ultimately that's the real secret to it. You have to think about, okay, you're storing your book, and that's the thing that gets you the most excited. That's cool. So, what's your story about how you're going to tell people about it?
Right. I mean, you have to. I will say this, that I have learned a lot of my marketing techniques from Tom Hutchison. I'm going to go ahead and throw his name directly out there because I admire the way that he does his stuff. And he does what's called burlesque marketing.
Hold on a second here. To answer your question, RTV, it's been an up and down week, I think, for the both of us. I lost two freelancing gigs just due to budgets of their economy. That kind of stings. On the flip side, I got paid this week for another freelance job and another job as well. So it wasn't all bad, but yeah, I definitely took a punch in the chin this week. So hopefully you're doing really good over there. Over there, better than us, at least, because I can't. Bill, we mentioned earlier, he just came back from the hospital, not for himself, but for a significant other,
Yep.
and so there you go.
She's doing better, but yeah, we spent the majority of the day up there. We were there at 4 o'clock this morning, so before the sun was up and before my coffee was even thinking about being ready. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, here's to better days. No,
Exactly.
Tom Hutchison, he's interesting to me. I have interacted with him when Big Dog Inc. was really big into comic shops, right? Those days seem, at least for the time being, to be done. I don't know if he's gonna go back there or not. Um, there's some things I like about his techniques. There's some things I don't, right? Sometimes his timing's terrible. That's the only thing I will say about what he does. But he's definitely passionate about what he does, and he does
Hmm.
some really cool stuff that way.
Oh yeah, and I know sometimes with the timing, because there are times whenever I've been in chats with him onto the side and he's like, finally, I got the artwork in, I can go ahead and announce, this is actually happening on the campaign. So I know sometimes time frames and schedules don't quite match up the way that he wants them to, which, they hardly ever do for anybody in the industry, 100% at least all the time. I mean, there's always glitches in there. But I know there's some things that he deals with that, but I love the way that he does the whole, I'll show you a piece of it, but I'm not going to tell you anything else right now. That to me is like going fishing right there, because too many people go ahead and they just throw their entire line out in the water, but what they don't realize is they just threw their pole, their reel, their bait. Everything is out in the water all at once, and they're just hoping for the fish to come up to the top. With Tom, it seems more like he's just going ahead and throwing the hook out there and holding back, going, "That's okay, they'll be here." And then, in a few days or the next week or whenever he's got his, schedule set up for his marketing on there, he'll throw another thing out there and be like, "Okay, here's another drop." And people are like, "Oh, hang on a sec." It gets to the point where it's almost like air. By the time he says that button's ready to hit that, for the launch, they're over there going, "I want to be number one. I want to be number one. No, I'm number one." And they fight over it, and he's completely funded within minutes. It's
Yep.
just awesome to see how he does that.
Oh, I think the best person I've seen on Kickstarter is, all together, it's Russell Nolte.
Hmm. Yes.
That dude has his shit nailed down,
Yeah.
like absolutely nailed down. He advertises launch dates. He advertises cool things throughout. He goes up and down. But he also, the other real secret to him though is he's got the best customer service I've ever seen on any Kickstarter. It's not even close, right?
Right.
He's one, and there's not even a two. Like, he's so far ahead of the game on that, and because he really really goes for customer interaction. And I've supported, like, I finished the Kickstarter I backed. I had my stuff within a week. Like,
Yeah.
it was ready to go.
Yes.
There was no questions. It was just like, that is impressive. Now, most people, I realize, like, especially with the way things are now, like a week is optimistic even for him,
Hmm.
right? But I mean, the lesson I learned there is, like, preparing and being willing and open and friendly to engage with your customers cannot be overstated how important that is.
Oh, above and beyond. And on top of that is anything that goes on, because again, we're talking about situations happen, within the campaigns and all. Those creators who reach out to us backers with emails saying, "Hey, this happened. I apologize. This is
Oh
what we're
yeah.
looking for time frame." That communication right there makes it where I'll go and back them the next time it comes out. Those creators who come on there and they're like, "Well, it's been a year and a half. You still don't have your stuff. I don't know what to say." No, that's like, no, you had your one shot, you messed that up, because if you're not going to communicate at all, that's done. So you got to have
Yep.
that communication in there.
Oh no, it's. I've actually there's one person I'm a big fan of personally that made that mistake with me,
Yeah.
and just like I can't support you. In fact, I want to, right? Because I'm a big fan of both him and his wife. His wife's an amazing talent in her own right, but it's just like now I'm really torn. If I support her, am I
Yeah.
supporting him?
Yeah.
Kind of. And it's a weird, and that's a weird spot for me because again, I like them both as people, but from a business perspective, it's just like, nope.
Right.
I wouldn't. But that's just it. Like it's a process, and a lot of people don't necessarily. What the? Hold on a second here. Oh no, it's that's not the issue. There are. It's not that she's. I think she's great. But here's the thing: I'm now in court. Do I want to support her? Because if I support her, I'm supporting him.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a weird spot because it's like, do I because even though it's not a direct support, indirectly I'm supporting them, right? And it's hard when there are a couple to separate the two. It's
Right.
hard. It's right. That's just it. I don't necessarily. I get where you're coming from. Like I like it would in a perfect world that would be fair, but it's also just like I would like that experience cleared up a little bit before I would.
Yeah.
Right. That's just me. That's just me. Right. So maybe I'm wrong on this.
No, I mean, it makes sense, because once you've been burned, you're kind of like, I really don't want to put anything else on the table for that person. But like you said, especially whenever they're married, it's like, that they're not going, this is my campaign, that's your campaign, no touchies. They're kind of sharing into the pot on that. So you're supporting both of them at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's too bad because I generally like them both. But
Mhm.
again, business is business, and that sounds
Right.
really cold, but that's the world we live in.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes
So
sense.
yeah. So okay. So do you see yourself primarily as a marketer permanently going forward, or do you want to get more into the creative side?
Um, we're working on something. We're actually retooling, because marketing we're not going to stay in, simply because, how should I put this? It's oversaturated on how many marketers are out there, and for what they're wanting to provide for the money they're asking is really pushing clients away. We have clients that we talk to, and they'll do a meeting, and of course we're doing a face to face on StreamYard or something like that, and they'll look at us going, if you're going to ask us for any kind of money, we don't want to pay because we could do this on our own. And it's like, well, we understand some things you can, but this is what we offer. And they're like, no, no, no. We did this from, with X person over here. They wanted this amount of money, and then they provided nothing. And I'm like, oh, I hate that you got burned and everything, but we're not like that. But at that point, once you get burned, it's the same thing like you're talking about with your, the person that you're wanting to back. But, with the married situation, once you're burned, you really don't want to step foot back into that again. And with the marketing game, too many people are looking at it like, I can do it myself. But there's a lot of people who are having issues because wearing that many hats and creating and editing and doing the artwork and doing everything yourself is very taxing. So you really need some help with that. So there's options on there. But my fiance and I talked about it, and it's really not what we're looking at doing, because we're looking at something a little different and it's actually getting bigger by the second. I mean, this thing's growing fast, but it's not marketing.
Well, here's the thing, right? I kind of look at it like this: McDonald's, there are I have so for everybody watching, I've gotten crappy McD's before. It didn't stop me from going back. I would say it's a slightly different thing because here's the thing. Well, first off, I don't eat at McDonald's. I've gotten to that point in my life where there are fast food joints I will not frequent anymore, and McDonald's is one of them. The French fries don't ever go away. They're literally apocalypse proof. So I don't want to. If the world can't break down the fries, my belly can't either, and that's something. No, I won't. No, I won't. I promise you that I won't. Right. The only actually here, I'll take the back. The only way that would happen is if I'm in a truck stop in the middle of nowhere and my choices are McDonald's and a diet bar that looks condemned. Then I would choose McDonald's. That's it, though. Right? True. There's a true story in that. We'll get to that maybe in a minute. But I'm going to push back slightly. I think the reality of the situation is, I think the comic industry and I think the publishing industry both have this problem. You have people that don't want to market.
I saw it. Why not?
Fair enough, RR. Fair enough. I am going to push back. I think, especially with the next couple of years being what they are, I think advertising is going to be more important for these creatives and their work. I've been working with mid-list authors and people that have been looking to build up. They know the importance of advertising and they're past all that bullshit. And I think what's going to happen next year is that reality of, okay, there are I create advertising. It's one of my little side gigs, right? So just like I create it. And one of the things I've noticed about it, there's lots of different ways of doing it. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. I'm using video because I've done lots of video stuff because of the show and other things. I have a lot of experience with it. But the thing is, again, I understand, like, how do you build people, their worlds and themselves? Mm-hmm. I can do both very well. So some people go to me and I don't want to do it because I can't afford it. You're not my client. Because you're not ready for me at that point. In fact, I've been quietly told I should keep raising my prices, not lowering my prices. Because again, because here's the other thing too, a lot of people don't realize about advertising too. Let's say it's a Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. If I like you, this is the if I like you price for Kickstarter, I will tell you. If I like you, I will charge $3,000 to do a Kickstarter. And the reason being, it's the day in and day out of 3 months of my life. This is how I'm looking at it. This is 3 months of my life dealing with this project. Mm-hmm. So you're paying me for that. And if I like you, it's $3,000. If I don't like you, it's even more. Because of the work involved. It's the recognition. It's the recognition of the fact that in tough times, you have to recognize the fact that you actually need to advertise more, not less. And you can't fall back into a pattern, which you would now. Maybe you don't necessarily use a particular network or service, but it doesn't work. But you're creating content, you're constantly putting it out there, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like, there's a mid-tier author. She forgot to pay for her other advertising. My advertising actually kept her afloat a little bit during that time. So before she paid back and got it rolling again. Mm-hmm. So, but she constantly advertises because she realizes the value of it. And so do a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just sometimes, I mean, you kind of touched on it earlier when we first started, and you were talking about you heard some bad things and some good things, because sometimes the circles talk, and people get within those circles who have never been there before, and they get pulled into, and all of a sudden the first thing that's said is, "Oh no, don't talk to that one, don't talk to that one, don't do this one."
Actually, I had this conversation off the air with my guest last night. Here's the thing: I don't know you personally. Like, here's the thing. Now, that all said, this is how I view it. Everything's kind of like high school in the sense that I don't have a personal experience with you.
Mhm.
So I'm going to leave it up to you to decide whether it's a good experience or you hang yourself.
Exactly.
Right. That's it. Right
Right.
now, I will listen to other people that I do know that may or may not have dealt with you or have heard things about you
Mhm.
that will be in the back of my mind because it's just smart to go in with as much information as I can. Now, that
Mhm.
all said, that doesn't necessarily preclude me from at least hearing you out,
Right.
right? Because that's an experience. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do business with you,
Right.
right? But it's also like, but at the same token, individual experiences, and that's the other thing too, like, especially in this industry, there are people who have had incredibly bad experiences with each other for whatever reason. For
Mhm.
whatever reason. And the thing is, younger me would go, well, it's this person's fault or it's that person's fault. But the truth of the matter is, I'm again older slash wiser ish something or other. If if I'm not necessarily going to be so quick to jump on one side or the other anymore, I'm going to go, well, that is their experience, whatever it is, good, bad, or indifferent.
Mhm.
Now, if I find that a certain person is being mentioned in certain circles for doing certain things on all over the place, that's a pattern.
Right.
And at that point, it's no longer just a personal experience, right? It's a red
Mhm.
flag. And
Right.
so that's the and that's the thing. Like, again, there are points where it's like I listen to people for sure, but at the same time, it's just like what you have to look at is what's your experience with people, because your experience might be different than other people's experiences. And again, that again, if there's a pattern, you're not going to change the pattern either.
Right.
That's the other thing I've learned in life too. It's like let's just say for the sake of argument that you had this really bad habit of stealing airplanes, a la Grand Theft Auto. Okay, I've been told by a bunch of people that you have stolen these airplanes. Well, you're probably going to steal an airplane around me too. I'm almost going to bet money on it. If enough, there's smoke, there's fire, there's enough people that say it. That means at some point you're going to see this just plane on the ground, and you're just going to fucking just go for it, punch out the pilot, and take the fuck off. And I'm going to be like, what the fuck, right? Right? I mean, right? Because that's a pattern.
Mhm.
But I mean, I've had people come on here with bad experiences with certain people, and there are and sometimes I hear them, and I'm like, okay, I've had. Because again, the industry's small. I've had my own experiences with some of these people too, so I
Mhm.
know what to expect, how to expect it, right? And so I'm like, okay, so this fits with my experience, or this doesn't fit with my experience. Maybe I was the asshole. It is possible. I can be an asshole, Phil. It's is entirely a true thing, right? So, and that's the other thing too. So, I mean, there's a lot of these factors in life. So I'm willing to give people to some degree a benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
But if I notice patterns, I'm going to stop following said patterns.
Mhm.
It's gonna be like, nah.
No, and that makes perfect sense on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's like on
So
my show, on Hell of a Show, the four main rules apply, which my guests absolutely love every time I say them. No politics, no religion, no drama, no negativity. Now, I have had a couple of creators who've gotten on there and said, "My book has got politics or my book has got religion. Is that okay, that I bring my book, and talk about it or whatever?" I'm like, "That's fine. It's the forcing it down your throat thing. We don't do that." But the drama and negativity, that's the biggest part on there, and the best thing is the audience knows that that is a serious part of the rules as well, all four of those rules, because only twice in the whole time that I've had, that I've done my shows, have I had to eject anybody out of there. And StreamYard's got a great thing on there where you eject them and it removes all their comments all in one fell swoop with one button. It's great.
no, same with Restream. No, I have only two rules. Don't be a bigot, and if you're gonna be a dick, be an entertaining one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Right. I got even. I simplified it even more. Right. And so it's just like, well, I've talked about politics on my show. I don't care. talked about religion on my show. I don't care. I've talked about glitter on my show. I don't care. Right? It depends on the guest. Tonight, we're kind of getting to know each other. We're talking about marketing and comics. That seems to be where we're going to be. We're talking about high school a little bit. I mean, that's where we ended up. And your proclivity to rob airplanes. That's the other thing we've talked about on the show tonight.
Which, in my defense, I've never even played Grand Theft, so that can't be me.
He says that now, folks, but he puts the glasses, he puts on the shades, he looks, he goes to the airfield, he's like, which one is mine tonight? You call yourself Demon Phil, you might as well have some fun. So it's like, wanted Demon Phil, stealing plane.
Never thought of it that much.
Hey, listen, if you're going to get accused of something, right, it might as well be like, would you rather it be that than something else? I mean,
that is true. That is true.
Yeah. It's like, I'm an innocent man. Twitch. Right. That's it. Right. That's just it. Like I look. That's how I look at things. It's just, you have the ability to make yourself awesome. You have the ability to hang yourself. Right. And there are some people that are. How do I put this? Have earned their reputation, and some people haven't. I'm not. I am too old to judge. Right. Unless, like I said, I notice a pattern across the board, and then when I notice that pattern, then it's like, no, it's actually true. You are that person. Then, yeah, we're done. Right. That's it. Yeah. Fair, right?
I have no airplanes outside, just letting you know.
I know there's a 747 with your name on it. So
no, I mean, it's one thing that I really enjoy about doing the shows and being who I am with all this and everything is the phrase that I created several years back, which is waves of change. It is a saying that I use on the end of every single show, which is, it starts with one person dropping a pebble in the water. You get enough people to go ahead and drop pebbles in the water, you get the waves of change. That means a lot, and a lot of people have enjoyed that being up there because it really plays into not only the comics industry, but every single show I do it's basically a little piece that I do at the end and an outro that just talks about, this is what I learned, from my guest on the show, and it ties into life as well. It's just my way of kind of lightening up things a little bit for my audience. So it's not always a 2 a.m. infomercial. It needs to be something that's actually a personal gain as well.
Oh, sure. No, like, dude, last night I ended up talking about comic runs up to date that I'm really into with my other guests because that's what we felt like talking about. That's right. And then my previous guest after that, we ended up talking football because why not? Right. Exactly. We ended up talking about McDonald's here. Right. And I mean, I'm easy going about this sort of thing, man. I just like, I look at every guest as a blank slate. I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know what I'm going to expect. It'll be good. Some are very salesy. Some are very, very chill. Some are very, very eccentric, and they're awesome in their own way. And some just, you don't know what you're going to get and expect. And so I just go with it, man.
Exactly.
Yeah. But, so who's your favorite guest?
Ooh, we're going there.
Guess we're going there.
So, I mean, of course, I had Brian Polito on a few times, and Brian Polito, just as the guy, is fun. But the mind on him, he is ahead of the curve. Like you talked about earlier with Russell Nolte, I had him on as well. But Brian Polito has just got a way of, people want to know, how are you getting to where you are on Kickstarter? How do you get the numbers that you get? And the first thing he says is, have you put in the work? And I love that he starts off with that right there. He's like, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get to these numbers. There is no magic pill or seed or anything like that can make it where you get these numbers that I'm getting just because you're going to get to there. So you have to put in the work. But he's been a great one on there. And then Tom Hutchison has been a great one on there. We've had some awesome shows with him on there. And it hasn't always been comics. Like you said earlier, we've talked about some off the wall stuff, and it gets to be so much fun. And yeah, it's been interesting.
So those are your favorite two guests?
Those are the favorite two that I can come up with right now. I mean, I've had quite a run on here. I had oh, what's his name? I'm drawing a blank here. I'm getting older, so I'm starting to forget things. Cordos, Terry Cordos,
I
the
have
inker.
not had. That doesn't quite ring a bell for me.
Yeah,
But
he's won the inking award like more times than any other inker. There's a name for the award, and I can't remember what it was, but everybody, as soon as I mentioned his name, everybody was like, "You actually got him on," which was great, and that was during 2020. Whenever I had him on there, but he is one of those that I was terrified to have him on as a guest because how do you interview an inker? It's like, oh, you do inks. Okay, cool. And the show's still got, 45 minutes. What else do we talk about? It wasn't that way. It was very, very fluid, no pun intended, but it was very, very fluid. And we had a blast on there. And it was a great show. Got to know the guy a little bit more and his passion for what he does. That kind of steamrolled about everything that I bring up about with the passion in the industry. So every one of my guests that comes in, I always try to find out what is your passion, what is your trigger, what makes you go ahead and sit down at the desk every single day, or start writing something whenever you're at McDonald's. Since we're naming the name now, if you're doing all this kind of stuff, what drives you? And that's been really cool to do that. And guests have really challenged me in that without them even knowing. I'll have a show and all of a sudden I'll get done with the show and go, man, I never thought of it that way. That's actually a cool way to think of something. And it's not just the industry.
no, you get to learn an awful lot about how the industry works from other people because everybody will tell you different things that worked for them.
Oh yeah.
And some of them are really fun. And I mean, and sometimes you got to be willing to experiment a little bit with yourself too. I mean, I've had J.M. DeMatteis on the show. I've had Terry Moore, Riley Rossmo, Stephanie Phillips. Like, I've had people like that. I've had people coming up like Rob Multeri, Mog Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've had people like that. Although Mog is a big name in her own right in other fields.
Yes.
Elsa Guerra Garza. I've had people like Spider Robinson, Kelly Armstrong, Marissa Mayer. So, and it's really cool to see where they're like me. I think that's actually the really interesting part too. Is it's not. I think people. I don't. One of the things I think with people is most people. The line of success and failure is really a game of inches, and you're more often than not you're closer to the people you idolize than you ever possibly realize.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and it's true. I don't get nervous talking to like really famous people anymore because I've talked to a lot of them, as you can see, right? So I don't get the same. I mean, I'm always nervous getting on a show, but it's not like I'll find a way to bullshit with Stephen King. I'll find a way to bullshit with Brandon Sanderson. I will find a way to bullshit with Lights or anybody else I really want to interview, right? Because I look at it like, why not? They're human beings too. And you might as well just give yourself the opportunity to treat them like such and see what happens. And honestly, often than not, you will find these really famous people are really good people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the best part is I've had, we'll have the show and everything, and then they'll stick around in the green room after the show is over with. And of course, we're just kind of chatting, making sure they, enjoyed the show, if they had any kind of input, anything like that. Every time that I have a guest that says, I enjoyed that show so much because it wasn't the cookie cutter style. That's what I go for. I don't want to have where I automatically come up going, so you got a book. What's it about? When's the due date for the campaign? How many people do you have on there now? What's your goal? What do you have on here? What are your tiers? Let's go through all the tiers. You go through that. It's that mundane style that's on there. They like it whenever I go in there and go, so, are you Cobra Kai or Miyagi-Do? Which one are you? And they kind of look at me going, I'm sorry, what? And I'm like, no, Cobra Kai or Miyagi-Do. Come on, time's going to run out here. Let's do this. Give me this. And they kind of laugh it off, and they're like, okay, I guess I'm Miyagi-Do. And I'm like, okay, I had my finger on the button. I was fixing to eject you, but you're okay. We're going to go through the next one. And by then, it's just fun. It's no longer a interview for a job. It's just fun being up there, and I love doing that.
Okay, how many episodes have you done? I'm just curious.
As of last night, because I'm doing pre-recordeds as well, there's 130, well, yeah, 136. Yeah, 136, which is, and that's on Hell of a Show only. That's not including Unscripted and Positive Influence and the other shows and everything. But yeah, that's Hell of a Show flagship, so that's the one I really count.
So that's still an impressive run.
Yes.
So let's ask a fun question, and then when we get to the point where we'll wrap this bad boy up, at least for now, and that's this: what is the biggest lesson you've taken on everything you've done in the industry?
Whew. Biggest lesson is
that besides the combination to a Thunderbird of Steel. Well, again, that's neither here nor there.
There's that, yes, absolutely. But the biggest combination would honestly, is that I can't hold everything on my shoulders, because in 2020, like I said, I was trying to help as many people as possible, and I kind of went with that mentality as much as I could. Health issues kind of ensued on some things. There were some other issues that have kind of pulled me away from doing shows at times. But it gets to the point where you have to look at it. I will admit, I suffer from what is it called? The thing where you don't think you're good enough. There's a
imposter syndrome.
There you go, imposter syndrome. I definitely suffer from that. I'm getting better little by little, but it's one of those things that I get people up on my show and I interview them, and whenever I'm done, I have a great show. I'm enjoying this. I'm on cloud nine, and then I look at it going, who am I to have them on my show? What just happened here? It's just that quick incident that I have, that quick moment with it. So I'm having to learn to get past that, and to get past the point that I can't help everybody, and that I have to have a schedule in here to do everything. And it's starting to work a lot better in my personal life. I'm actually engaged to be married next year. And my fiance straight up told me, she said, this is your schedule. You stick to your schedule. If you deviate from your schedule, you have to let me know why we're deviating, which means if I've got somebody, across the world and have to change the time because of, to work with their time better, that's okay. But to go ahead and, try to pack in 5 people in a night just because their campaigns are all ending at the same time, I can't do that. Exactly.
No, can't do that. I do 5 shows a week. Usually I can do 4 or 5 shows a week, right, depending on the week. And that's it. There are people I'm open to helping anybody, but once my schedule's full,
yep,
it's full.
Yep.
And I don't try to go a moment past it. Would you like advice on your imposter syndrome?
Oh, please go ahead.
So this show is an award-winning show. It won an award in 2018. It's been nominated. It was nominated in 2019 and 2020 as well. When I got nominated, that's when I had my first bout of imposter syndrome. And I was like, wow, this is really a surreal thing. And then I just took a step back. I asked myself 3 questions. How did I get here? What did I do so good to get this opportunity? And how can I not fuck this up?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
3 things. And I asked it in that order because everybody gets to where they get to for a reason. Like I said, I ended up I've had Kelly Armstrong on the show. We talked Borderlands, which is really cool thing, right?
Nice.
I had a White House. Spider Robinson has a White House story that will have you pissing yourself laughing, right? And it's hilarious. You will die literally on screen. These are great, amazing, wonderful people, and you just happen to be there, and it's surreal to think that you're in that same space, that same conversation. And I got even crazier goals, right? There are, like I said, I mentioned Brandon Sanderson, I mentioned Stephen King, I mentioned a few other. Yeah, I'm going for it because why the hell not, right? And again, I am a cocky enough son of a bitch to think I can do it, right? But I've realized, and again, there's going to be moments. Again, those give me butterflies. I love those butterflies. They make me, because I can't. That means I give a shit. If I don't have butterflies, then I'm done. Like, there's no way in hell I can keep doing this show. Like, I've done a lot of these shows, as you can see, right? And it's one of those things where, I'm going to keep at it for as long as I can. But it's evolved. It's changed. It's going to keep evolving and keep changing as time goes on. And it's going to. So But the thing is, I no longer worry about good enough. I realize that people are here for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm honest with myself. It's like, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is what I need to work on, and I just turn it into a work, the work
Mm-hmm.
that into the work. And once I turn it into that, it doesn't feel quite so bad. And then when I get these really cool chances and opportunities, I let myself enjoy them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's
And
my
that does.
advice,
That makes sense.
and that's my advice to you. Like if you are like I said, Brian Polito is someone I've always kind of wanted. He's on a list of people I'd love to interview. I've never done it, but I say it like this, right? But you've done that, something I haven't done yet, right? So, and that means there was something about you that Brian knew and approached, and yeah, I could do this. Super cool, super fun, awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I say it to you like this. It's like you got a lot of good qualities that work for you. Now, like everybody else, you have some qualities that don't work for you too, and you gotta be honest about what those are, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fifth rule. I have like 10 rules to success. My fifth rule is get out of your fucking way.
Mm-hmm.
It's rule 5. Get out of your way. If you can let yourself get out of your way and enjoy it, you can go somewhere.
And that's what we're actually trying to build, because I came back and tried the marketing thing, and to be honest, I lost my way because I
Yeah.
started seeing more dollar signs than I saw helping people, and the dollar signs come from the following and from people being on there, with the time and you know, did you do the work, as Brian Polito would say. Um, and I did not, and that hit me pretty hard on that. Plus, two really good friends passed away at the exact same time. One of which is in the industry, David Fought. Um, Whenever they passed away, that was huge because they were my age for one thing, and then them passing away at the same time, that hit me a lot harder than anybody knows, and it took me out of the game for almost probably about 7 months, 8 months of not
Mm-hmm.
being able to do anything, simply because I couldn't. I mean, I'd go to try to set up a stream to come back to just talk to people, whatever, and I couldn't. Um, that woman that's back here in the other room that's recovering, that I'll be going back here taking care of whenever we're done with this. She's the reason. There's a hashtag that I started up calling, saying "Thank you, Trish." That is right there because she is the reason that I'm still doing this. I may not be helping a ton of people. I may not have 40 million viewers. I may not have, all these subscribers and everything. But if I'm helping one person at a time, I'm still a success as far as I'm looking at it. So, like you said, I'm starting to look past myself to get past things. So I'm getting out of my own way.
Yep. Acknowledge your faults. You have to, because it's the only way you're going to get better. But acknowledge your good stuff too, like whatever that actually is, and acknowledge your strengths. And if you can do that, if you can do both, and not let your ego get too much in the way, you need ego a little bit. You need
Right.
ego just a little bit. Because here's the thing: your ego is going to fight for your worth.
Right.
So you got to let your ego do that.
Yep.
You have to. But that's what your ego is good for. Everything else will get you in trouble.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I completely agree on that.
Yep. But on that note, Mr. Phil, my plane riding friend, I will say I think we have an interview here. What do you think?
Hey, sounds good to me. I think I've enjoyed this quite a bit, and gotten to talk a little bit and get you to know a little bit what we're doing over here.
Yeah. So how can people find you?
So Phil Lockler on Facebook is the best way, and then of course if you go to DARKE enterprises.com, just remember to put that extra E in darkenterprises.com. That's our website, and it has a link to all of our social media and everything in there, so you can find that really quickly. And yep, you got it spelled right
See,
and
I
everything.
did it. See, I'm a trained professional, Phil. They gave me an award for this. They gave me an award for this. Okay.
Exactly.
I can press buttons.
Yep.
Shh. Yeah. Right. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. So if you want to support this podcast, obviously you can click and follow, whether it's Twitch, YouTube, or anywhere else that you have gotten to listen to or watch the show, as this will be available for both. And if you are interested in me making videos or audio or words and pictures for your projects, your brands, and yourself, this is my advertising services right there. Go click on the link, check it out right now. And guys, tomorrow is going to be a fun one. I have a musician from a band I interviewed previously. She's a drummer. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. It'll be tomorrow afternoon. So come watch us there. But for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you soon. Hold on here. Trying to hit that button. Come on. Come on, you. It won't let me end the stream right now. Actually, it's trying to let me end the stream. Kind of, sort of. It's funny because now the time has frozen. The time has frozen. So now I got this like round thing happening on my computer here, which is just
All right.
yeah.